Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, as you know, we've put together this show to show you different coaches, consultants, individuals who are making money, earning a living through coaching and consulting. We want them to kind of share their stories of how they created the success for themselves and how possibly you could do it too if you've ever considered becoming a coach or consultant. And today's guest is Akua. Oh goodness, I think
You
I
got
think I
it.
got it.
Nyame Mensa.
Yeah, Nyame Mensa. So
Yes.
welcome, Akua. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. So tell us, what type of coaching consultant do you do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I do executive coaching. And
Hmm.
then on the flip side, I do also some consulting as well.
Yeah.
So my background actually is working primarily with startups. So I love to say that I'm sort of a beacon, right? A lighthouse for startups to help them show them their way. And then when I work with corporate clients that are a little bit more bureaucratic, a little bit more structured, I'm more like a firework, right? I'm providing something different that's exciting for them.
Love it, love it. So what got you into executive coaching?
Once again, a really great question. So it actually was my startup experience. I had the opportunity to start building a business at about 25. So I actually was given the resources and was sort of given an online platform, and they were like, go. And so I quickly realized that the best way to sort of get things done was to build rapport with my team. And after sort of having this opportunity to build out a team, first in Ghana, I was then given the opportunity to build out a team also with an online platform in Nigeria. And I realized that some of the same things that I was doing in Ghana wouldn't necessarily move well to Nigeria because the team had already been formed and I wasn't the one who had necessarily hired everyone. So I was introduced to coaching actually by a colleague who suggested that it'd be a great way to build rapport with this existing team and then also a great way to manage upwards better as well.
Hmm. So in essence, so would you say, are you pretty good in team building? Would you say that's one of your strong points?
I think so, yeah, definitely. I've built teams from scratch and I've also taken over somebody else's team. So I know what it's like to have to recruit people to hire them. And I also know what it's like to have a team that's very resistant to you and, sort of maybe wants to take advantage of you a bit.
Hmm.
I've also broken down businesses as well. So my first real job, actually, the platforms I worked on were sold. So I actually had to work with my team and motivate them and encourage them to actually work with our competitors to sort of offload all of our clients and then sort of fire ourselves as well.
Love it. So how do you do that? What's when it comes to working with teams, what are some, I guess, big mistakes or big like secrets you've learned over the years?
I would say the first thing really is all about self-awareness. A lot of the times I thought that working with teams was more about everyone else, right? This idea it's somebody else's problem or it's somebody else's fault. But what I realized is that it really does start with me as the leader. And so building self-awareness and really being aware of what triggers me, what makes me happy, what gets me excited, what allows me to connect better with others is really key, especially when you're working within a very small, intimate environment like a startup, right? When you're constantly going to be in each other's faces and constantly need to get things done really, really quickly. Knowing yourself, right? Understanding your weaknesses and your strengths will be key. So I would really say that's number one. And I think that's the number one mistakes that we as leaders tend to make, both in the startup and corporate world. We tend to say like, oh, it's other people's fault, or this is just how I am.
Hmm. Yeah, that is so powerful. Taking full responsibility is pretty powerful. Now, a question, because most of your teams you've kind of built, whether it's from scratch or you've just joined, was it like an in-person team to where you were actually physically in the offices together?
So yeah, the first team I built, we were all together in the office. When I was given the opportunity to go to Nigeria, I then was working with my first team mostly remotely. And now I actually have the opportunity to work on more project-based teams really remotely as well. So I've experienced both building teams from scratch in person and working with a lot of different types of teams in more of a structured environment and also on a project-based environment as well remotely.
Yeah. And remote, is there quite a difference between in-person work and remote work, would you
I
say?
would say, yeah, I would say that there's a bit. I think that when you do remote work, you have to be even more conscious of what your strengths and weaknesses are. And you have to be very intentional about engaging and learning about others. When I've had the opportunity to consult for some companies, some ways to sort of build that, bridge that gap when you're working remotely can be through video, letting people actually build out who they are and explaining who they are through video can be very, very, very powerful. But I definitely think there's a bit of a difference. And the basic thing is that you have to be a lot more intentional to build community when people are just engaging online.
Mm-hmm. And what do you have a preference in terms of what you rather, or it depends on situation?
That's a great question. I mean, now, I work primarily by myself. I just sort of join projects.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed building my team at the time I did it. I'm not sure I would do that again. I think that I'm in a very different place, maybe in my career and also my personal life, where I really do enjoy doing things online. And it's really fun to get to connect with people and see what it's like and see what it takes to connect with people online.
Yeah, it's powerful. I know COVID-19 has definitely shifted everyone online too. I was talking to one of my clients, Mark, on Sunday, and he was telling me, because he's in Italy, Paris, and he was telling me like one of the big auto manufacturing companies, once they got into and saw how online was and how everyone was remote, he said they just decided that the whole, like I think 80,000 people or something would just be all remote. I was like, that's
Wow.
very interesting. But there's an interesting thing with being remote as well too, because it's one of those things where, when you're in an office with different individuals, there's a politics and all these different things. I believe that remote is like one of those places where when it's like the results speak for themselves, right? Because there's no type of, in there's situations where if you're in an office or something, somebody gets special treatment, or this person could get away with not doing what they need to do and then pass on to the other person because they favor them a little bit more, and those different things. But online is a whole different shift. Have you
Really
seen that?
interesting. I've never really thought of it that way. And that's something I definitely will be talking to people a little bit more about, whether or not it sort of democratizes opportunities and access. Because you're right. I think that when you start to go online, you do have to be a bit more intentional about tracking people's work. And you can track people's work in a very different way. So that's really interesting. Yeah, that's not something I'd ever thought of, but now moving forward, I definitely will keep in mind.
Yeah, yeah, it's just very fascinating because I know when I hired my first virtual teams as well too, it was one of the ones where you could just tell pretty quickly where someone either they have the excuse and they can't talk their way out of it because again the results aren't there, right? There's no, hey, this is just like, hey, it's consistently not there. So very interesting. So that's the executive side of stuff as well. So tell us in terms of what's the other side of the consulting you do now?
Yeah. So the other side of the work is that I do is really consulting. And I would say that once again, the way I think about it is one, I also have the opportunity to be, I mean, my technical, what would be the technical title I have is co-founder for a platform actually for consultants and coaches as well. So I look at that as a consulting project. So there's a certain number of hours that I dedicate towards helping build this online community that's primarily for African coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also work with other bespoke coaching, related sort of products, which is also very interesting. And I also work with, sometimes I'll get asked to work on projects by just other types of organizations that bring on like coaches and consultants. So other bespoke consulting companies as well, if they need somebody in, helping with organizational development or running a webinar or running a workshop, sometimes they'll call me as well. So that's really the other side of my business. And it's probably a little bit more on the consulting side right now because there's a lot of really interesting companies that are doing things than the coaching. But I'm hoping that moving forward, it probably will be more 50-50.
Mm-hmm, about 50-50. Okay. So you said you're also working on building a platform. Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so that platform is called CoffeeChat, and it's really exciting. So there's this really interesting American gentleman who's been in Africa for most of his adult working life, and he really benefited from coaching himself while working for this African-based agricultural startup. And so he wanted to build a platform that would give access to coaches and experts so that they could have access to entrepreneurs and other people that were looking to build their skills across the board. So this platform, we currently have about 300 coaches and consultants, and it's just a lot of fun because we have the opportunity to work with these coaches to help them think about what they need to do to engage better with their clients. And then on the flip side, we are sort of educating the market on the benefits of having access to coaches and consultants.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what does the interaction look like? How do you guys, someone joins, how do you guys do weekly trainings, monthly? What does it look like?
Yeah, no, great question. So you can just go to coffeechat.co and you can sign up for an account. And the idea is that you can either sign up as a mentor, and a mentor means you're either a coach or a consultant, or you can sign up just to be a user where you'll have access to the coaches and the consultants. And the nice thing is, because it's a marketplace, it really allows us to be very transparent about prices. So we don't set prices. The coaches and consultants decide on their pricing. And it's just really easy because as a coach or consultant, you don't have to worry about having a website, right? All your information can be there. People can pay through the platform. And then we also hold the money in escrow as well. So we have different types of payment opportunities. So people can sponsor you, you can give the gift of coaching, you can pay in installments. And so it's just a very easy and fast way to sort of build up your coaching business without having to invest in lots of different types of technology.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So
Yeah.
let's get a little bit into your backstory then. So what would you say? That's a question I just came up with my last interview I did, right? So the question was, like, tell us a story from your past. So you're here today. You're pretty successful. You built your business. You've done a lot of cool stuff. What is there any stories? Can you share one story that happened, something that happened in your past that kind of got you on the track to making you become the person you are today?
That's a great question. I mean, so first of all, I've only really been on this journey for about 2 years. So, I mean, I definitely feel like I'm successful and I'm still headed in that direction, but it hasn't been super long.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of a story, I mean, there's so many.
Good. That's
I mean, I
good.
definitely think that one of the things that really, um, I guess, excites me about the work that I do is just thinking back to when I started off at 25, having this opportunity to build this online platform. And, just sort of taking it, not thinking very much about it and just feeling extremely lonely. And this idea that, there was no one really I felt that could understand what I was doing. Of course, I had colleagues in other countries because this particular organization I was working with was Pan-African. So there were other colleagues I could talk to, but thinking about the specifics of the country I was in, there was really no one I really could sort of brainstorm with or have conversations with. And so I think for me, that's really one of the reasons why I wanted to really, be involved in coaching. And one of the reasons why I think coaching is so powerful, because I don't want other leaders to feel lonely, right? I also don't want them to fall into some of the same traps that I did, such as having conversations with my, teammates or my employees, and telling them things they probably had no business knowing, right? I think that's one thing that a lot of us leaders, the first time we become a leader, we might do. But a specific story, I mean, I think maybe one of the craziest things I had to do was, I wouldn't call it necessarily lying, but withhold from my team for about 6 months that our platforms were going to be sold. Once again, I think that having a coach at that time would have made that time period a lot easier. Once again, somebody to confide in that's not my supervisor, that's not an employee, that would, sort of understand what I'm going through and just help me think about ways to deal with that situation. So I would say, yeah, being told that my platforms were going to be sold, and then being told that I had to convince my team to continue to work, even though they weren't going to have a job in 3 months, would probably be the story to tell. And I think that's going through that has made me see, one, that sometimes, this idea of failure is not always a failure, that there are really good things that can come from having something shut down or closing down something, or sort of, passing off your customers to another client.
Yeah, so powerful, so powerful. And I love what you just said about failure as well too. It's typically not failure, because I believe, as Napoleon Hill said, out of everything that seems like a failure, there's a seed of equal or greater opportunity. So it definitely seems like you figured that out, which is good. I think every entrepreneur needs to hear that. At least if they've heard it already, it needs to be repeated. So next question now becomes, what's your vision? What's that vision that you hold right now in terms of the place you're headed with your company and with what you're doing?
No, that's a really great question. I think for me, once again, just about 2 years in, it's just really building a rhythm. So for me, my theme for this year was all about, or is about, sort of visibility. So it's exponential visibility and value. So it's really all about sort of putting myself out there. So opportunities like this, make it easy to put myself out there and demonstrate to people my value. So I would really say that's it really for the next year or so, just really focusing on visibility and value. And from that, really building out a really consistent way to work. Because I think that that's one of the hardest things to do in a coaching consulting business. Be very consistent with that pipeline, right? Being very consistent with delivering results, and then ultimately being very consistent with that full life cycle that you go through with the client. And I think that through increasing my visibility and being consistent with that, increasing my value, it will lead to those results.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So you said it's very fascinating what you just said there, which is you're going to spend the year. The theme for the year is
Yeah,
just visibility and value. So only two things. So I know most individuals, if you look at the month and what they're doing, it's like they have all of these different things over a whole just a month period, and you're like, man, like what's going on there? But the things they're doing is all scattered. Versus it seems like your approach is totally different, which is you have the high level things, which is a two things. The entire time we're not going to do 20, we're not going to do 30. We can have these two things, visibility and value, and then under those things we'll kind of see, okay, what are the different projects that can be broken down.
exactly. Yeah. It's
So
sort of like a checklist, will this bring me visibility? Will this bring me value? And not
yeah,
to say I don't have numbers. I also do have numbers on the back end. But what I have found is that attaching it to something that's a little bit more emotional, I find just leads to better results for me.
yeah. So why visibility and why value?
No, that's a great question. I think because, the first year that I was doing this, I was really shy to put myself out there. I think one of the biggest things that we all have to get over, especially if we're using our personal brand to actually get business, is putting ourselves out there, right? Because when you get rejected, it's like you feel personally rejected. And it's so funny because as a coach, I understand this, I hear it, I know it, I tell other people it, but now having to live it is really key. And that's why that visibility component is one part of the way in which I'm choosing to sort of live out my year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second component, value, is just about just becoming comfortable talking about what I do, and talking about the value that I provide. So one thing I've tried to do, for example, if you want something more specific, is putting out testimonials and showing people, the types of things people have said about me, right? Previously, that wasn't something I was comfortable doing.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's something that I ask my clients for, I get their permission for it, of course, and then I'm becoming more comfortable sharing.
Yeah, yeah, powerful stuff. Visibility is one of those key things as well too, and that's an interesting thing because I believe with most coaches and consultants, one of the biggest problems they face is that thing of being the best kept secret, right? So most of
Mm-hmm.
them I realize they're really good, they're experts at what they do, but then they're struggling to get clients. And I'm thinking, okay, why is this person struggling? Well, it's because they're typically either at home, in an office, isolated, and they're not putting themselves out there because I know that just like when I talk to them, I'm like, man, if someone knew you could help them with that, they would beat a path to your door. But the thing is, you're like the best kept secret right now, so I believe that we all need that visibility. It's one of the key things, especially in this online world. If you're not putting yourself out there, you probably won't make it because again, you're the best kept secret, right? No one. It's good. It's a great song. I'm the best kept secret, but in actuality, it
Yeah.
doesn't bring in any profit, any income, and no new clients, right? No change, no transformations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. So tell us, what's the best way if someone wanted to get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, just take a look at my website. So it's really simple. It's my first name and then my last name initials. So akuanm.com. And on there, you'll see sort of the work that I've done, the different types of clients and brands that I've worked with. Have a chance to sort of hear. I have some clips from some of the workshops that I've done as well, and the resources that I provide.
Mm-hmm. Now, give us more specifics. Who are you looking for this message to touch? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically I describe sort of my more B2C clients and more of the individuals who tend to work with me as globally minded. So globally minded simply means these are people who are looking to transcend whatever boundary they're in. So for example, I work, primarily in West Africa, but the types of people that are excited to work with me don't want to necessarily have West African results, right? For them, they want to have world-class results. They have world-class, expectations. So that's really that first bit. The second bit is this idea of being multidimensional or multi-hyphenated. And what that simply means is that I tend to work with people that are involved and are interested in a lot of things. So I told you, right, I work on this platform. I have my own practice. I'm also involved in, a lot of other groups as well. And I also have a very diverse background, right? So what I went to school for initially is sort of not even what I'm necessarily practicing. So I tend to, once again, attract a lot of people who have those types of backgrounds, right? Engineers who ended up in management or leadership, right? Or, people maybe who came from a little bit more of a hard science that are now working with people and trying to figure out how to make that work. And then the last sort of element is this idea of just being ambitious. So I tend to, once again, attract people who are ready to work hard, who want to make a change and are ready to do so.
Mm-hmm. Love it, love it. Cool. Well, hey, appreciate you so much for stopping by. And all the links you mentioned here, guys, if you're watching this on the replay as well as maybe on the live or something, the links will be right below so you can click on it and connect with her and just see what she's up to. So with that being said, do you have any final thoughts before we end here?
I would just say thank you so much for this opportunity. I think, like I said, this is the great opportunity for me to get more visibility and sort of put myself out there. So I really do appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to see what you do online as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate it. And we'll be in touch. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
Awesome. Yep. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Yep. See ya.